Some people call him a legend for what he did in the ring. The 3 division titles, the 35 knockouts, and the heart that defined Puerto Rican boxing for a generation. But have you ever wondered how a man who survived the most brutal wars in sports history actually lives after the final bell has rung? Today, Trinidad isn't just a retired fighter. He's a mogul sitting on a fortune estimated at over $51.3 million. He wasn't just a hurricane in gloves. He was a strategist who turned his left hook into a prophecy and his legacy into an empire. This is the story of the man they call Tito. But before we step inside the mansions and the multi-million-dollar garage of the Caribbean King, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because this journey is just getting started. The legend began on January 10th, 1973, in Fajardo, Puerto Rico. His father, Felix Trinidad Sr., wasn't just his trainer. He was the architect of a masterpiece. He instilled a discipline that bordered on the monastic, ensuring that every jab was a laser and every hook was calculated for maximum destruction. By the time he was 17, he had already taken Puerto Rico by storm, winning 5 national amateur championships and proving that his talent was a once-in-a-generation phenomenon. But it was in 1990 that the Hurricane made landfall on the professional circuit. Most kids his age were still figuring out who they were, but Trinidad already knew. On March 10th, 1990, he flattened Angel Romero in just 2 rounds. It was a display of raw, unbridled power that left the division on notice. In his first 10 fights, 9 ended with his opponents staring up at the lights, victims of a punching power that felt more like a physical collision than a sport. However, the path to greatness is rarely a straight line. In December 1991, he faced Jake Rodriguez and broke his hand early in the bout. Lesser fighters would have folded under the searing pain, but Trinidad adjusted with the poise of a veteran, winning on points through sheer willpower. It was the first sign that he possessed a mental fortitude that matched his physical power, a psychological armor that made him nearly impossible to discourage. When he recovered, he came back a predator who had learned how to hunt even when wounded. But even that was just the beginning. That predator found his first true prey on June 19th, 1993. Maurice Blocker, the veteran IBF welterweight champion, stood across from a 20-year-old Trinidad. Tito ended his reign in the second round with a clinical efficiency that shocked the boxing establishment. Just like that, the world had a new king. For the next 7 years, he didn't just rule the welterweight division. He occupied it like a fortress. He defended that title 15 times, a feat of consistency and dominant longevity that remains one of the most impressive runs in the history of the sport. He didn't pick easy fights. In 1994, he faced the flamboyant Hector Macho Camacho, proving he could master the sweet science and outbox a defensive wizard at his own game. That same year, he faced Yuri Boy Campos. In the second round, Campos did the unthinkable. He dropped Trinidad with a flash knockdown. But hitting Tito hard was like flipping a switch to a darker room. He rose with vengeance in his eyes, systematically dismantled Campos, and handed the Mexican warrior his first professional loss. This became the Trinidad template. You could hurt him, you could even drop him, but you could never break his spirit. And then came the fight that changed everything. September 18th, 1999. Trinidad versus Oscar De La Hoya. The Golden Boy versus the Caribbean King. For the first 9 rounds, De La Hoya danced and jabbed, using his lateral movement to cruise toward what looked like a sure victory. Tito, fueled by an inexhaustible engine and the pride of his island, surged forward. He applied a pressure that was suffocating, cutting off the ring and winning the final rounds on sheer, relentless aggression. He had conquered the welterweight world, and he was already looking for new mountains to climb. But his greatest test of ferocity was still to come. On December 2nd, 2000, he faced Fernando Vargas in a fight that many still call the greatest light middleweight war of all time. It was a collision that transcended sport and entered the realm of pure myth. It was a brutal back-and-forth battle of wills until the 12th round, when Trinidad unleashed a final, terrifying barrage. He seemed invincible, a man for whom weight classes were merely suggestions. But the final challenge loomed: Bernard Hopkins. The fight was originally scheduled for September 15, 2001, but the world changed on September 11th. When they finally met on September 29th, the atmosphere was heavy with history. Hopkins, however, had a master plan no one else could execute. He used veteran craftiness to frustrate Tito, neutralizing his power and wearing him down round by round. In the final round, Hopkins ended the unbeaten run. It was Trinidad's first loss. Yet, even in defeat, the love for Tito never wavered. For all the wars he fought in the ring, for all the blood spilled and records broken, the only place Tito truly relaxed was at home, surrounded by his daughters, far away from the noise of the world that once demanded everything from him. In that quiet sanctuary, the hurricane was silent. He disappeared from the spotlight for nearly 3 years, leading many to believe his time had passed and his fire had gone out. But in 2004, the roar returned. He demolished Ricardo Mayorga in a vintage performance, proving his myth was still being written in real time. Though he would eventually fall to the defensive mastery of Winky Wright in a final legend versus legend battle with Roy Jones Jr., his legacy was already set in stone. 42 wins, 35 knockouts, and only 3 defeats. He left the ring a legend, but his story was far from over. As we look at Felix Trinidad in 2026, the image of the hurricane has evolved into that of a sophisticated mogul. His net worth, estimated at $51.3 million, is the result of a strategic and hard-fought second act. His primary residence in Trujillo Alto is a multi-million-dollar architectural masterpiece, a sprawling estate featuring sweeping modern lines and floor-to-ceiling glass that blurs the line between luxury and nature. Tito's appreciation for the finer things is most visible in his garage, a $2.5 million gallery of mechanized power that represents the pinnacle of automotive engineering. His collection includes the Ferrari F8 Tributo, a mid-engine beast that mirrors the explosive, short-burst speed he once showed in the ring. Alongside it sits the Lamborghini Aventador S, its V12 roar acting as a mechanical echo of the cheers that once filled Madison Square Garden. For daily travels and family comfort, he favors the refined, whisper-quiet authority of the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, the ultimate symbol of making it to the top. This collection, which also includes a fleet of Mercedes-Benz G-Class SUVs and S-Class sedans, isn't just about vanity. It's a victory lap for a man who spent decades in the most grueling profession on earth. The wealth of the Trinidad Empire is also found in the subtle details of a high-stakes life. Tito's story was anchored by a romance that defined his character. In the quiet hills of Trujillo Alto, he met Sharon Santiago. Their love was built on a red Mustang, shared dreams, and a promise that outlasted the fame. Tito showed the same persistence and love that he showed in the ring. Together, they raised 5 daughters who became his primary motivation and his greatest pride. Following his retirement, reports surfaced of significant financial mismanagement by his inner circle. There were claims of massive debts and frozen assets, with some sources suggesting his net worth had plummeted to a staggering $1 million. The boxing world held its breath, fearing that another legend had fallen into the tragic trap of post-career bankruptcy. But did what he always did when he was dropped. He rose. He took control of his narrative, fired the advisors who failed him, and began a systematic rebuild of his wealth. He diversified his holdings, moving aggressively into Puerto Rican real estate and the high-end dining industry. He invested in local infrastructure and boxing promotion, successfully transitioning from being the talent to being the tycoon. He remains a living symbol of resilience for Puerto Rico, a hero who showed his people that you can survive any hurricane, whether it's in the ring or in the bank, if you have enough heart and the right team behind you. This heart is perhaps best exemplified by his life outside the glare of the boardroom. Felix Tito Trinidad has remained tirelessly active in philanthropy, particularly in his homeland of Puerto Rico. He has spent years supporting underprivileged children, community development programs, and cultural initiatives aimed at preserving the island's vibrant heritage. His most notable effort is the Felix Trinidad Foundation, an organization established with a singular focus: youth development and education. For Tito, this isn't just charity, it's a commitment to giving back to the soil that shaped his career. He frequently participates in charity fundraisers and has donated significantly. This legacy beyond boxing provides a powerful resonance to his story. Even during his periods of financial challenge, Tito never abandoned his charitable commitments. This consistency has reinforced his image not just as an athlete, but as a pillar of the community, a man who understands that true wealth isn't measured by the cars in his garage, but by the impact he leaves on the faces of the children who look up to him as a role model. His legacy didn't end with the final bell. It continues in the hum of his engines, the sparkle of his diamonds, and the roar of a nation that still chants his name with the same fervor they did 30 years ago. He is living proof that authenticity is the rarest luxury of all. He didn't just win fights. He built a lasting empire that belongs to no one but the Trinidad family. Despite the global fame and the tens of millions of dollars, Tito remained grounded, walking the streets of San Juan not as a king, but as a neighbor, offering a warmth that made him a permanent fixture in the hearts of his people. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the $51.3 million empire of the legendary Tito Trinidad, smash that like button and subscribe for more elite profiles. What was your favorite Tito knockout? Was it the left hook that ended Maurice Blocker, or that final legendary surge against Fernando Vargas? Let us know in the comments. And while you're here, check out our breakdown of Anthony Joshua's $261 million global empire. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.